All right, welcome to another Thursday morning and yet another episode of Seeds of Music, the web's #1 resource for independent artists. I'm your host, Kyle Williams, and this is our weekly web show where I bring on music industry professionals and successful independent artists to talk about the ways to build a bigger, stronger fan base and earn more income from music. So quick, I'll run it by you. We have an iTunes podcast that you can subscribe to. Just head over to iTunes and search for Seeds of Music, Rise Above the Noise. Leave a rating and review if you would feel so inclined. That would really help improve our ranking in iTunes, give us more exposure, and we'll be able to get bigger and better interviews for the show. And also, I'll give you a shout out if you leave a review in the next episode just to say thanks for that. So on today's episode, I have Jack Conte, and Jack is a musician and an entrepreneur and who has created a platform called Patreon. And Patreon is basically a way that fans can give ongoing support to their favorite creators. So for instance, you're probably familiar with Kickstarter, which is crowdfunding or crowdsourcing, and it's project-based. So you want to create an album, then fans give you money to create the album, then you make the album and you give them all the rewards, and that's it. But with Patreon, they're able to give you support on a continual basis for the continual creating of art, the continual creation of music. So there's a big difference there. It kind of reminds me a lot of patronage that for the arts from Lorenzo de' Medici back in the Renaissance era in Florence, Italy, for any art history buffs out there. But anyways, so this is going to be a really, really awesome interview. I definitely listened to the whole interview. It's a relatively not too long, and we jump straight into it. So I'm going to stop babbling here and let's jump right in. Okay, Jack, thanks for coming on to the Seeds of Music web show. I know you're moving into a new space. You got a new office. I bet that feels pretty awesome. I'm a little cramped in here, but I think you've got an echo going on.
Yeah, we it's sort of a bigger space than we need right now, but we're hoping that we'll grow into it.
Well, I mean, then you can bring in the skeet ball and start playing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Just go to the local Chuck E. Cheese, and maybe they're throwing away one of their old toys, one of the old arcades. You could just haul that thing in. That's what I do. But hey, got to fill the space up. So let's just jump right into it. I know you're a super, super busy man, and I want to actually hit up a little bit about all the stuff that you do outside of Patreon. But first off, Patreon, okay, this is a big project you've been working on, and I've actually, a lot of musicians and artists that I know personally are starting to use it. Can you explain to someone who knows nothing about it, nothing about the concept of, maybe they know a little bit about Kickstarter, but what is Patreon exactly?
Sure. So Patreon, at its core, is ongoing monthly funding for creators.
Okay.
It's kind of like Kickstarter in payments from fans, but instead of payments for a big project like a new album or a TV show or a book or a movie or something like that, it's for people who are releasing stuff on a regular, who have YouTube channels or who put out new songs all the time or draw web comics, or people who are just popular, beautiful things. It's for that class of people, and it really is a class. It's an emerging creative class. It's a massive cultural shift that we're experiencing right now, where you just have all these people who are full-time creators, and they just put beautiful free things on the internet for other people to enjoy. And Patreon is a way for them to get funds. It's a way for their fans to say, yes, I want to pay you $1 per month, or I want to pay you $5 per video that you make, or I'm going to pay you $50 per video you make, and if I pay you $50, then I get the behind the scenes footage, and I get the blog posts, and I get the extra whatever stuff, anything like that. So it's a way for fans to make recurring payments to creators, either on a monthly basis or on a per creation basis.
So it seems like the difference between that and a Kickstarter, which everyone's familiar with, is that Kickstarter is project based. So it's like, I want to make this album. However, Patreon is support me as the artist on a continual basis for each project that I create.
Yeah, exactly. So I love Kickstarter, and I think it's an incredible platform. And for me, it just wasn't the right choice though, because I don't need $250,000 right now. I all I want to do is keep making music videos.
Yeah.
What I need is a salary.
So something sustainable,
Yeah,
exactly.
So I keep making music videos. That's what I'd like to do. And so Patreon is a way for people to just keep coming out with the things that they're doing that's building their audience and, and fulfilling their creative dreams.
And do you think this something like Patreon is going to help bring to fruition a true middle class of musicians? Because I've heard some people like who have quite like a good bit of authority in the music industry who say that there is no middle class, that it's basically third world versus super rich elite musicians. But with Patreon, is it possible that we'll really start to see an emergence of middle class musicians making as much as I don't know, middle, as much as like a working professional, like a teacher or a car mechanic? I don't know. Those are probably bad examples, but you get the idea.
So the way I talk about that is this old-fashioned dichotomy between the starving artist and being rich and famous. Mm-hmm. Your options were one of those two things. If you choose to be a professional musician, you can be a starving artist and not make enough to have food and fit 8 guys into a van and play shitty gigs for $25 a pop at local bars, or you can be Lady Gaga. And then the question that you're asking basically is, are we going to bridge these two? Are we going to start to see this middle ground where you're not, if you look at it in terms of businesses, you're not necessarily Walmart, you're not necessarily, PayPal, but you're a local restaurant who's booming and making a good salary and a sustainable, viable business.
I can think of first thing that popped in my head is a seafood restaurant that's only in the Gulf Coast, Gulf Shores, Alabama. There's only 3, but it is awesome, dude.
Yeah, and they're packed and they do great business. Okay. It's not going to happen. It's already happened. That's who's using Patreon. There's a whole slew of musicians who are now making 6 figures. Yeah. They're not making barely passable yearly salaries. They're making good salaries.
Yeah.
They're killing it. And no, they're not household names. And no, they don't have the #1 top single right now on iTunes. Yeah. But they're selling 10,000 songs a month, 30,000 songs a month. And they have a dedicated, growing fan base, and they have a few 100,000 YouTube subscribers, and and that's enough. So yeah, I mean that middle class, that's not an opinion at this point anymore. It's a fact. It exists.
I'm glad to like actually get this kind of feedback from you, because for some people they just don't. I think musicians get, this is just my personal opinion, but I feel like a lot of musicians get caught up in this negative whirl to where it kind of colors what they see. So when they look out in the world, especially if like your window of the world is social media, you just get a lot of social validation of points of view that you already have, and you kind of miss like the exceptions to the rule. So when people say there's no middle class, it's like, well, I know of artists that are making either 6 figures or maybe just 5, but it could be like 60 grand or 70 grand, and that's an engineer. I had a stepfather who was an engineer, and he made around 70 grand. I mean, with a college education and years of experience. So it's really interesting that you're saying that. I mean, do you think it's possible that an artist can make a living solely from their Patreon supporters?
I think artists need every revenue stream that they have available.
Okay.
If you're big enough, you could totally make a living just from patronage. But at that point, you're big enough where it isn't the only way you're making a living.
Yeah.
You're also making a living doing brand integrations and licensing.
And endorsements, things like that. Yeah.
And exactly. So but I mean, we do have some folks with 400,000 YouTube subscribers, 500,000. They're not household names, and we sent them checks last month for $15,000 for 1 month.
Is that what's similar between them? Is they all have like YouTube as a big platform for them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be YouTube. We have some creators who don't have like huge YouTube followings, but they just have big online followings. Like here, Zach Wiener Smith. Have you heard of him?
No.
He's a webcomic. Or how about Jeff Jacques? Have you heard of him?
Nope.
He's another webcomic. Okay, then have you heard of Peter Hollins?
Nope.
Okay, have you heard of Scott Bradley?
Nope.
Okay, these are all people. So these are all people who are making like bank
hmm
on, they're doing really well, um,
What's
on Patreon.
so what between all these individuals? Like, if you could break it down, like just like top three similarities between them, like what would those be?
Yeah. Engaged audiences, people who love their fans and whose fans love them back. That's it. That's
So
the
they're
one.
not self-absorbed. Gotcha. Number.
It doesn't, yeah, and it doesn't have to be people with huge audiences.
Are they all
Not,
outgoing people, or are some of them kind of? I mean,
no,
are they all extroverts, or?
no, they're nerdy. Well, not all of them, but like a lot of them are like, you know, shy people.
So so they actually kind of learn to have this fan interaction, because there's some artists out there that they it's kind of like tough for them. It's kind of like a challenge to get that fan interaction. So it's good to know that there are some people who are not like naturally outgoing, and because I think there's this myth that people think, oh, I'm not like outgoing like Amanda Palmer, so I can't have like fan engagement like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm more reserved or shy.
Yeah, I'm a incredibly shy person unless I'm around like my close friends. But I hate going to parties.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I think in my entire college experience, I went to maybe 3 or 4 parties. Um,
yeah, yeah.
I just hate it. Yeah, I'd much rather just be with 2 or 3 close buddies. I'm a very social person, but I'm social in these very small kind of ways with a very
Yeah.
select group of friends who I just really trust and like hanging around.
Yeah.
I'm not like some crazy extrovert, and I think that's more and more true for a lot of people online. They're not necessarily great at, um, hustling and being
Yeah.
hustling in the real world, but like online they can get behind email and they're charming and they're,
Well, it's kind of,
it's
they know
up
they
here.
have to. I mean, like,
Yeah,
if it's like something is going. If you want to, you have this goal. You have this thing that you really want, which is like to
that,
spread your music
is what
and get support from.
matters.
Yeah, then you're going to have that motivation to push through doing things that are uncomfortable. Like, it's just. It seems like, do you feel like no matter what, if you achieve success in the new music industry, you have to do things that are uncomfortable? Do you feel that way?
Um, Interesting. Yeah, I would say for me, I'm always pushing myself. I don't know if I would ever say you have to do anything to achieve success in the music industry,
Mm-hmm.
because there are so many ways to skin a cat. And
Mm-hmm.
like the one thing that I learned is just like do whatever works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's real. I don't care what people say. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter if people say, "Oh, that's not legit," or "That's not how everyone else has done it," or "You're a
Yeah.
faker,"
Well, let me
or
like
whatever it
reframe
is.
it.
Like, do what works for you.
Let me reframe the question, because it's more like, what works, absolutely, what works. But do you find that sometimes what has worked for you when you first started doing it, it was uncomfortable? Like, you're like, I don't really like, feel 100% comfortable with this, or I don't 100% enjoy this. I mean, have you encountered that?
Totally. Vlogging is the weirdest thing I've ever done. It took me so long to start vlogging.
Yeah.
Like talking to a camera sincerely, and then writing a script and saying lines, and then messing up a line and then going back to the beginning of that line and saying it again makes you feel like the most disingenuous faker in the world. Like, it feels so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, that's the best word. It's just like vlogging is the most uncomfortable thing. But then I watch some of my favorite channels, some of my favorite vlogging channels on YouTube posted behind the scenes vlog videos. It's just an uncut 30 minutes that they
Yeah.
whittled down to 3 minutes. And it's just them repeating lines at the camera. And then like going, fuck.
Yeah.
They're like trying to like psych themselves up
Yeah.
and get themselves to smile
Yeah.
again and try and be cheery and all this kind
Yeah.
of shit. And then they just cut all that out and they put in these really cheery lines where they're just talking to the camera and they look charming and wonderful. But like the actual behind the scenes thing is so uncomfortable and weird. And then, yeah, like a lot of it is just getting over that and just realizing that, like, okay, I'm going to
Absolutely.
do this and it's going to feel weird and I'm just going to make it work.
Absolutely. Like I've done the same thing. That's how I haven't posted my behind the scenes, but I think usually I'll start talking to myself like in doing Ace Ventura impressions. So maybe someone would enjoy watching that. But just real quick, I wanted to talk a little bit more about Patreon, just specifically how can someone get started with it? I mean, what's the mechanics of how you use it?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really super easy. You go to patreon.com and you click join, and then you make yourself a creator page. And then basically what you would do is, create a video where you talk to your fans about what it is that you do and what you want to do, and come up with some plans for how you're going to reward them for being a patron. Everything from a monthly webcast to free MP3s of your new songs to a creation journal that is sent out to only your fans, whatever it is. Come up with a few rewards, make a video where you explain what you're doing, and then get it out to your audience. That's it.
Can you support without having to make a creator page? Like, can I go pledge to?
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. You can go pledge to Julia Nunes and Peter Hollins and Jeff Jock right now if you wanted to, and you don't need a creator page at all. You can just be a patron if you want.
Okay. Awesome. And you get to choose like the different levels of how much you contribute per month and set a limit maybe.
Yep, you get to create a budget, and you never go above your monthly max for that creator. So if some creator says, hey, I want $1 per creation, and you say great, and I'm topping it off at $6. So that way I know I'm never going to go above 6 things, even if that creator releases 6 things or 1,000,000 things.
Yeah, okay.
Your max payment's going to be $6.
Okay, that's awesome. That's really helpful for someone who's kind of like, oh, I don't know, maybe this guy will create like a bunch and then I'm gonna be like, oh, he made like 50 videos. What?
Yeah.
That's cool though. How much? I have this really interesting question I want to ask you specifically because you're you're kind of like a little bit of a polymath. Like it's interesting because like Patreon makes me think of patronage from the Renaissance era. For you had like these wealthy patrons supporting these extremely talented artists, but you yourself are extremely talented as well. You are an artist and you are an entrepreneur. Some people feel that entrepreneurship can't save art and that business and art is diabolically or diametrically opposed to each other. I mean, what is your opinion on that? Do you think that entrepreneurship can bring like positive benefits to the art world?
Yeah, so here's what I have to say. Well, I guess there are 2 ways I would interpret that question. One is it possible for a person to be both an entrepreneur and an artist? And then the other interpretation I have of that question is, are entrepreneurs working against artists in general?
Yeah, like our motives, no matter what, always like opposed, no matter what. Yeah. Like Vader and Luke Skywalker. That was a bad reference, but sorry.
So let me answer that question first, or at least my opinion on that. Most tech these days, most companies that are emerging, especially in Silicon Valley, want to be billion-dollar companies, and their method of doing that is by reaching out to consumers. They're consumer-first organizations. They want listeners, they want viewers, they want readers, they want consumers. Their strategy for getting consumers is by making, at least if it's in music or video or whatever, they make the media as cheap as possible. So Spotify, let's make it $10 a month for all you can eat songs, right?
Yeah.
Pandora, free, all you can eat songs. YouTube, free, all you can watch videos. So the way that they're doing that is they're saying, okay, great. We want lots of consumers. Let's give them a free or a close to free experience. And as a media company, we'll benefit because we'll take a cut of the advertising. And the consumers are going to benefit because they get this free, awesome service. And the people who are going to get fucked are the artists.
Yeah.
That's most companies that are coming to play right now. So take a step back. That problem is a problem in and of itself. The fact that all of these companies are emerging in an economy that's consumer driven to and consumer first, right?
Yeah.
All these companies are consumer first. That's a problem. So the problem that Patreon is solving is, what the fuck do we do about all of these companies that are consumer first?
Yeah.
How do we prevent artists from getting screwed in the next 100 years of consumer first technology companies?
Yeah.
And our solution to that is to create a company that is first, but a company that is creator first.
Yeah.
Patreon is a company that is for creators. Creators is a creator at the helm. We want to help creators solve the problem of getting screwed. Particularly, that's our goal as our company.
Yeah.
Our company's goal, our mission statement is to fund the emerging creative class.
Yeah.
So that's the problem that we're solving. So do I think that entrepreneurship and tech are diametrically opposed? No. I just think that tech is usually not focused on artistic goals and on artistic people. And so Patreon is an experiment in, can we build a company whose mission and whose goal is to help creators, not necessarily consumers, but to help to solve this problem of, oh my gosh, everybody's going broke even though they have millions of people listening to their work. They're not getting paid.
Yeah.
That's where we come in. So no, if I thought they were diametrically opposed, then I wouldn't be doing Patreon.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And did you have any struggles like within yourself? Like, I mean, when you thought about doing, creating Patreon and you realized that you had to build certain entrepreneurial skills, obviously, did you encounter resistance from your inner artist?
Totally. But it's funny. I've always been a realistic artist in that, I if I want to keep making more art, I have to make money, right? I've been a professional artist now for 8 years. I find that a lot of people who aren't professional artists have very unrealistic views about money and art.
Well, what's your view of money? Like, how do you see money?
So, okay, first of all,
I know it's a loaded question.
I'm really sorry. No. It's a great question, and I'm really excited to answer it. I have another call at 2:30 that I have to run to.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
But let me just answer that really quickly. Money. So I think if you look at money just from like a non-specific perspective, then it can be a really negative thing. But the truth is, I've always viewed money as allowing me to make more art. That's the purpose of money. It allows me to focus on making art. Without money, I can't make art. I'm not saying I want $1 million budgets.
Yeah.
I just, if my PG&E bill gets shut off, it's a little bit harder to focus on making art. So I have to make money. Also, I'm generally pretty careful with money. Occasionally, I decide to just ditch all sense of practicality and just spend the money that I need to realize an artistic vision.
Yeah.
I'm totally willing to do that.
Yeah.
And I've done that before, like on my pedals video last year.
Which was awesome. And I saw the Big Muff pedal. My brother has that. Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah. It's like his Jack White pedal. As soon as you turn it on, you sound like Jack White.
It is. That is the Jack White pedal. But yeah, I have a very realistic viewpoint of money in that I am happy to like partner with a brand or work on something. As long as I don't have to compromise my artistic integrity, I'm stoked to get paid. As long as I agree with the practices of the brand, we've turned down brand deals. We didn't do a brand deal with Walmart, we didn't do a brand deal with McDonald's. But like Hyundai, great. I'll make a music video in front of a Hyundai.
So now, Jack, you are magically wearing a hat, but through the tricks of editing. We'll definitely leave that in. But yeah, I just want to say thanks again for taking the time. I know you got to run. So everybody, we got the link to Patreon set up below, so make sure you follow through and check that out. Also, Jack, do you recommend that Seeds of Music have a Patreon?
Yes, I do.
I think I'm on board with that. So I'm gonna put it on the whiteboard I have over here, my big master plan whiteboard. So once again, Jack, thanks for coming on. Hope to talk with you again. See ya.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.
That about wraps up this week's episode of Seeds of Music. On the show today, we had Jack Conte. Make sure to check out the link we posted up below to Patreon and start using Patreon as part of your income diversification as far as music goes. Because remember, we talked about this in a couple past interviews, actually quite a few past interviews, that the best way to make a full-time living or make more income with music is to diversify that income, and Patreon is a great option to do that. Next, if you haven't yet, sign up for our email newsletter. You'll get updates on new interviews, vlog episodes, articles, and a whole bunch of hoopla, plus special newsletter content to help you build a bigger fan base and sell more music online. And once again, I'm going to beat this over your head, so excuse me. Subscribe to our podcast, leave a rating and review, leave a rating and review. That would really, really help. Next, if you like this interview, you got Facebook, you got Twitter, like, share it, tweet it out, put it out there on the blog, in the blogosphere, and out in the social media sphere, I guess is what I would say. But just, share it on social media. And next, comment on the video. We have a comment box on the actual post page for on the Seeds of Music website where I embed these videos, or you can leave a YouTube comment. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Do you know someone who should be on the show, or is that person you? You can reach out to me, kyle.seedsmusic@gmail.com, open door email policy. I read every email that comes my way and try to get back to it ASAP. And remember, we are the future of music.